everyone to this July 15, 2020 City Council work session. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using in response to Governor Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives order. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping its members, staff, and the public safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials webpage. And as always, other avenues of communication with me and city councilors are available, including email and voicemail. And thank you so much for joining us. And with that, I will turn this meeting over to the manager. Our first topic is the 1059 Willamette redevelopment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have Amanda D'Souza here to do a presentation and lead us through the discussion about Willamette. We actually have 3 topics today, which is a little bit unusual, so we'll try to stay on.
I will get my screen sharing, and Ann Fifield will be kicking us off.
Hi. Good afternoon. I'm Ann Fifield, and I'm the Economic Strategies Manager in the Planning and Development Department. And I'm here today with Amanda D'Souza to discuss the redevelopment of 1059 Willamette Street into mixed income housing. We know that you have a very full agenda today, so we've worked to keep our presentation short so we have time to answer any of your questions. Redeveloping this site into housing will address many of the city's long-standing goals. It is also a project that will help our community recover from the negative impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. It will create housing, it will support downtown vibrancy, and as a construction project, it will create jobs. So I'm going to hand it over to Amanda now, who will explain the project status and the recommended next steps.
Thanks, Ann. I will first give a recap of past council action that brought us here today. As you know, the building at 1059 Willamette has been vacant since 2012 when Lane Community College moved to their new downtown campus. In January, council approved the use of federal community development block grant funds to acquire the property as a land bank site for mixed income housing. Because the building was acquired with federal funds, at least 51% of the units must be affordable to households earning 80% of area median income. The other 49% can be rented at any level. At the January work session, you also approved the use of a request for proposals process for disposition of the site. And finally, council made the project eligible for downtown urban renewal funding in the 2016 plan amendment. I'll also note that council identified housing as one of the uses that urban renewal funds could support at this site. Since the January work session, we completed our due diligence and closed on purchase of the building in April. Today, the purpose of today's work session is to take the necessary steps to keep the project moving forward. Specifically, we'll be asking you to provide feedback on the RFP criteria, the proposed public engagement process, and the financial incentives package. In addition, we're asking council to consider scheduling a public hearing on the project, which is the next step for the potential use of downtown urban renewal funds. Figuring out a path forward for this project has been a little bit complicated. We needed to take into account 3 different processes for land banking, downtown urban renewal, and the council approved disposition process. Those processes are all in attachment A for reference. We've taken those 3 processes and consolidated them the best we could to come up with our recommended timeline, which is in attachment B. We'll walk through that timeline in more detail later on. There's a lot of steps in this process, as you can see, but our overarching goal was ensuring that the process was transparent and had opportunities for public input. Attachment C has a list of draft criteria that would be used to evaluate RFP responses. The goal of the draft criteria, which are split into required and preferred, is to attract development teams with demonstrated experience and to solicit proposals that comply with federal requirements and that are timely and feasible. Today, we are asking for feedback on the criteria. We will bring the criteria back at a future work session for final approval prior to issuing the RFP. We've outlined a few additional public engagement steps in the RFP process. As a reminder, we conducted several engagement opportunities as part of the acquisition, including meeting with the Downtown Neighborhood Association and other downtown groups, housing and service providers, and hosting a community input meeting in January. In our recommended timeline, we propose the following public engagement opportunities: re-engaging with stakeholders to get feedback on the criteria, holding a public hearing to discuss the project and potential funding sources, which is part of the downtown urban renewal process. And then after we receive proposals, we would convene the evaluation committee to score and rank proposals, which is something you've already directed us to do, and ask for the community's input on the proposals. I'll now hand it off to Anne to talk about the financial feasibility and potential incentives for this project. Anne, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. We estimated the financial feasibility of this project by modeling the costs and revenues of a 5-story structure. We used local construction costs based on information from local builders, and we used CDBG allowed rents and current market rate rents for new apartments in Eugene. These are both shown in this slide. We found that with this mix of rents, the project would not generate enough rent to cover mortgage payments and operating costs. And so our staff has worked on multiple housing projects in the downtown. We know from this experience that non-student housing is only financially feasible in the downtown if there's some kind of public support. Long before there was a pandemic, council laid the policy foundation to build housing on this site, establishing tools to support this mixed income housing project. You approved the use of CDBG funds to acquire the site for housing, and the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan allows the use of urban renewal funds for housing at this site. We've identified a mix of tools that can be applied to this project to make it financially feasible. First, the site is now a land bank site, which we make available at no cost. We can cover a number of standard development fees, including SDCs, permit fees, and the connection fee to connect to eWeb's downtown electric network. We can demolish the building and create a shovel-ready site. The building has been substantially altered over time. It has no historical value and has lots of deferred maintenance. We estimate that the fees and demolition costs could add up to almost $2.2 million, but that number can really vary based on the actual development plan. And finally, MUPTI is another incentive to help lower the operating costs. And I'll hand it back over to Amanda to discuss the funding options.
So we've identified 3 potential funding options the city could utilize to support a future mixed income housing project at 1059. Each have their own set of challenges, which are described in attachment D, but I'll highlight a few. First is the Downtown Urban Renewal Funds. As I mentioned before, Council made 1059 Willamette one of the projects eligible for funding in the 2016 plan amendment. The project itself is eligible for up to $6 million, but the plan amendment estimated an allocation of $3 million. If council or the agency board wanted to spend more than $3 million, it would reduce the amount of funds available for the farmers market and park blocks. Second are MUPTI-related public benefit funds. It should be noted that there are many competing needs that these limited funds could assist with, and the timing for fund availability is uncertain. The third is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, made up of funds collected from the construction excise tax. Similar to the MUPTI funds, there are a number of competing needs that the fund could assist with. As we mentioned before, there's a process to using urban renewal funds, so I'll give a quick recap of what that process is. We've already done the first 2 steps of that process, and today we are reviewing the project scope and funding options. Next would be a public hearing about whether the project should move forward, and if so, how it should be funded. Following that, the agency board would take action on the use of urban renewal funds. By going through this process, we would be able to offer the availability of urban renewal funding with the RFP. There would be a future decision point on the specific use of urban renewal funds related to the project. Today, all we're asking you to do is consider scheduling the public hearing. Finally, I'll go over what next steps would look like should we continue to move forward with the recommended timeline in attachment B. So here we are today. Next would be public engagement, where we would ask stakeholders for feedback on the criteria. Then there would be a public hearing on whether the project should move forward, and if so, how it should be funded. You would then have another work session where you would finalize the incentives package, including the use of urban renewal funding, and approve the RFP criteria. Then the RFP would be released. And once it closes, we would do more public engagement, getting community input on the proposals and convening that evaluation committee. Next, council would select the proposal to move forward with, and then we would bring back deal points for disposition and development of the site. This would be the point where you would be making the specific commitment of funding to the project. Then the agreement would be signed and the development team would conduct their due diligence before acquisition. Finally, should they choose to apply for a MUPTI, we'd initiate the standard MUPTI process, which includes the review panel and council action. And with that, I will leave the suggested motion up, but I'll hand it back to you guys for any questions and comments that you may have. Ann and I are here to answer any questions.
So thank you so much. That was a very succinct summary of a huge amount of work, but very clear. So thank you very much for that. Betty, are you raising a hand? Yes, okay. I have Betty in the queue first. Take it away.
You need to put on your headphones, Betty.
Thank you, Mike. Looking out for me. I have a question. When I talked to the city manager about this a long time ago, I said, are we giving up the...
Move the microphone closer to your mouth.
Are we giving up the possibility of using this for a homeless shelter? And I think your answer was no, because of the funds we used to buy the property. Is that correct? The question for the city manager.
Yeah. So when you asked that question about purchasing, I said we were not giving up that possibility at that point. I think this RFP for housing would be giving that up as a homeless shelter.
But could we still do that if the public wants it and if we decide we want it?
Yeah, if the council chooses to not want to do a housing development there and instead do something for homeless like a shelter, you would need to vote no on this process.
Thank you. So that's the only way to do that. We can't have a public hearing asking the public what they think about it. I like the idea of mixed income housing, but I still think we need a shelter downtown. And this seems like the ideal spot. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, Claire and then Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for this presentation. I do have some questions, but first on that question, we've been looking at a couple of other sites for our low barrier shelter. So I know they're not downtown and some counselors think it should be. I personally don't think downtown's the best place for our low barrier shelter. I think this kind of workforce mixed housing is a preferred use for this location. But I think if we put this out to a public hearing, which I hope we will, we'll hear from folks on that question, I would think. So I would love, I know we've got some time before we have to look at the financial pieces, but could we just get a list, a calculation with the list of all the possible, because you've got this all spread out in different buckets. And so if you could give us a piece of information that says you potentially have this much from affordable housing, you have this much from this source, you have this much from this source, so we can see it all combined into one place, that would be super helpful. I thought the MUPTI in lieu of funds were going into our affordable housing fund.
So we have two kind of separate buckets for those MUPTI public funds. We have the one specific from the hub on Broadway, which was approved before the program got revised. So those funds, at least part of them, have to be spent on an emergency or temporary shelter. The other, the moderate income housing contribution, so that's the standard program funds. those are pretty generic. We haven't actually received any funds in that program yet. I anticipate that we'll receive those for Gordon Lofts once that project gets completed. And those funds are to be spent on supporting affordable housing. It's pretty broad in how that money can be spent. And council can provide more direction on how that can be spent.
All right, so there's two different buckets, or it's because we changed the program, and so there was the bucket before we changed the program and one after.
Yeah, so when council started talking about revising the program, we already had an application from the hub in for the original program, and so we kind of made this in between, specific only to that project.
Gotcha. And we have we spent any of the hub 1.03 million that you've got there? Oh, that's
Yeah.
FY26. Gotcha.
Yeah, we haven't. They have to start paying it about halfway through their exemption, so we're not at that point just yet.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I'm also confused about the piece on the urban renewal, because in one place you say we've designated 3 million, in another place we've put a cap at 6 million. And could you clarify that? And also, do you recall, or does anyone from staff recall, when we talked about the Park Blocks Farmer Market, was staff in that list of tally of resources saying, you could pull all the funds from the LCC building and use them all for this? Because I can't remember.
I think Amanda Noble Flannery, do you have that answer?
Hello, good afternoon. So the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan Council listed, each project has a stated cap in the plan itself. And for this project, the stated cap is up to $6 million of tax increment funds. That was a change that council made the day that the ordinance was passed. The spending limit itself is set up to have $3 million for this project. So if council decides to spend additional tax increment funds on this project, that without increasing the overall spending limit, that would reduce the amount available for the other projects, Farmers Market and Park Blocks. To answer your question about the Farmers Market, your June 22nd work session, the amount of funds there, it didn't consider taking any funds away from this project. It was talking about the Park Blocks and open space, 5.2 million.
Right, but the estimates coming in for those projects are above what we had allocated in the plan for them. So if we wanted to allocate more, we would have to defund some of these other projects.
Certainly, yes, if you wanted to continue with the full Park Blocks and open space project.
Okay, because I think I see other counselors acknowledging my question. That's part of my calculation as I think about this. Now I recognize we have time. We don't have to decide this today, but I wanted to surface kind of that dynamic for these funds. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions for right now.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and then Alan.
Thank you, Mayor, for the staff that are keeping tab at homes. The priority list for me when it comes to use downtown urban renewal money is going to be the farmers market first, the park block second, and this building project third. So if we're going to draw funds from what's available, that would be the order in which I'd like to see us do so, and then have a discussion, if necessary, about the cap in order to attain, if we go that route with this particular project. Claire hit a number of the questions I was going to ask already. Thank you, Counselor. The one that remains, though, is that you calculated the 80% AMI and market and made the comment that that would leave us short of financing costs. So my question is, that sounds like in advance of the RFP, you've done some modest calculation or round number calculation of number of units and total project costs, or at least very roundly estimated costs. Is that true, Ann?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you tell me the amount per unit in that particular calculation that we would be spending?
The cost per unit, I'd have to go do some quick math. I didn't think about it on a per unit basis. We modeled a 5-story
Round numbers are fine there.
in about 100 units, and I'll do the math real quickly and get back to you.
Sure. Okay, if I could have that while we're having the discussion here, that would be cool, because I think that's a part of this too that needs to inform the public hearing. A lot of things, and I suspect we'll probably have one, but I think that we should have that conversation up front by saying that this will be, in order to make this work, and it's a high public goal to make it work, it will have I suspect it will have a very large public cost, or cost per unit, compared to private building in a similar way. And I think that's an important component to the discussion in a public hearing. So I'd really like to know what that round number is as soon as you can. I can see you feverishly working on the computer there.
I am.
too.
I've got the spreadsheet open. I can't see you anymore. And the costs were actually based on recent projects that we've seen come out of the ground of that comparable.
Right.
Spoke to the developers of both the project down on the Amazon corner project, as well as one that's coming out of the ground now, the Ferry Street Manor. And so it's based on the cost of private production. And let's it worked out to about 188,000 per unit.
Okay. And then the initial target that you're shooting for is the 80% AMI as the point of this being low-income available housing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The market numbers were just for comparison. Okay.
That's right. That's right. Just to show the difference. It's quite a bit different.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alan, and then Emily.
Yeah, thanks. I'm wondering about the building itself as it stands now. You said there's quite a bit of deferred maintenance. I'm wondering how much deferred maintenance there is, and structurally, how does it sound? I mean, basically, is it salvageable? I know that remodeling, from personal experience, can be just as expensive, if not more, sometimes, depending on what kind of problems you run into, than starting anew. So, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the building itself, I mean, would require a lot of abatement. There is asbestos and lead all over the building, just given the historic nature of the building. And then because it's been started out as a department store and then repurposed as a school, the division of the building is very strange. And so reuse of the building isn't necessarily impossible, but it'd be very cost prohibitive. There'd be a lot of cost in trying to reuse the building as it is now.
Structurally, so it's not gonna fall down.
I don't believe so, no. We conduct an environmental review as part of the federal acquisition process, and it's structurally sound right now.
Okay, good. So, go ahead.
The outside structure is fine. I think the internal stuff, you would really have to leave a shell behind. It's had deferred maintenance, and then a couple winters ago, I think somebody threw a bottle on top of the building, punctured the membrane, and then it snowed. And so it's just like every year it's gotten worse and worse on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On the flip side, $2.2 million for demo and prep seems like quite a bit of chunk of money. Is the money that we have available from either Urban Renewal District or other funds available for that, to get it demoed and prepped for a new development?
Yes, we can use the urban renewal money to do the site prep.
And the trade-off, I suspect, is that the more public subsidy in terms of demolition and site prep, the better off the pro forma looks for any potential low-income housing project, because now they don't have to plunk in $2.2 million to demo and prep the site. Right?
That's correct.
Okay. And
the demo is a little bit less than half. We got a very, very rough bid from a demo company, and it was $700,000 to $900,000. The other costs are SDCs and permit fees are the really big ticket items.
oh, okay. And can the SDCs be waived? Well, it's our project.
We can cover them. We can't waive.
We can't waive them. We can just cover them out of general fund, right? Not urban renewal district dollars.
I believe they can be covered by urban, but I might have to check. I don't know if Lauren or Amanda will know. Yeah.
Yes, they can. The Urban Renewal Agency has done that before. We did it for Northwest Community Credit Union, for example.
Okay. Yeah, as far as the having it be a low barrier shelter downtown versus a multi-workforce housing, say 100 units, I much prefer 100 units of workforce housing than a shelter at that site. Given where it is, it's easy access. It's in the middle of downtown. It's right across from the bus station, so it's actually perfect for workforce housing, I believe. So my priorities for urban renewal dollars are the same as Mike's, and I gather most of the councils. So given the deficits on the farmers market project, it's taking the money from the park blocks project still doesn't quite get us to the full amount of money we need for the farmers market full farmers market project. And then we might have, that would leave us with the option of potentially taking this money or part of this money. I'm A, wondering what that amount would be, and B, what's the process for doing that? That requires a plan change. So that doesn't require a vote, but it requires a public hearing and action by the council.
Yeah, I can address that one. This is Denny Bro, Planning and Development. A couple of things to note. Councilor Zelenka, we're about to approve for an EDA grant for the farmers market. And that application, I think, is to the tune of something like $3 million. So if we were able to secure that grant, we would have enough money between the park blocks money and the farmers market money and a grant to do the farmers market. So I think that's an important consideration. If we moved all of the 1059 money over and to the park blocks, we still wouldn't have enough money to do the park blocks. Because if you remember that, the park block side in and of itself is about a $12 million project. We could do a smaller project or something in that regards, but it wouldn't solve the park blocks problem. There's not enough money to do.
Yeah, right. But the reason I asked that is because it kind of shifts my thinking about it. Even though my priorities would be the same, farmers market, park blocks, this, the fact that we can't do the park blocks project because we're going to shift over to the farmers market, even if we rated this entire amount of funds, makes me think that using some of the monies available to do the site prep and the demo is a good way to actively support this project and give it a good kickstart with a good public subsidy, and without costing general fund money. And it's already we've got the money available within the urban renewal district, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Still leaves about $1 million potentially or so, or 800,000 that might be able to be used over at the farmers market. So, and of course the grant, we still have to get the grant, but hopefully we will. Okay, so yeah, in that case, I kind of like the idea of moving forward with this proposal to a public hearing for sure, but I like the idea of getting us there.
Alan, you're going to need a second round. I wasn't watching the clock. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't looking at the clock either. I had a different screen.
Okay, Claire alerted me to that. So I'll put you down for a second round. Okay, Emily.
Thank you very much. Boy, everything got expensive. My list is farmers market, housing, and then the park blocks. One concern of mine is that the park blocks included open space, and we want to make a connection between Willamette and the river. And I think that we really need to include outside the library, that corner, and the corridor next to the Graduate and the Holt Center. That one is particularly important as Fifth Street is developed. I'm concerned about keeping Fifth Street and downtown connected, so that corridor is essential. I don't think that will take a huge chunk, but I think that 1 million could certainly 800,000 could go there. One thing I would like to see at the park blocks before any big remodel is a restroom. And I think that's essential. Maybe it doesn't need to come from urban renewal, but I really want to see that. I'm against remodeling the building. I took classes in it, and it's wacky. And it has all that asbestos, and I think it's ugly. So I'm in favor of knocking it down and building housing. And boy, I hope we get some of these grants. Thanks.
Okay, I have, I'm going to give Chris a first chance, and then I've got Claire for a second round.
Thanks. Interesting conversation. For me, the thing I'm getting from it is we've got 3 projects we'd like to work on, but we've really only got enough money to do 2 in a significant way. And so what can we do to try to find a way to be able to do all 3? And I agree with the other counselors with regard to the priority order. I agree with that. I would love to see this building turned into affordable housing, because we need affordable housing downtown. And as was pointed out in the presentation, if you let the housing be built just on its own, you can't get to that affordability level because it won't pencil out for the builder. And so we need to figure out a way to be a partner if we want to be able to get that rent or that cost down to a level where it can actually be affordable. Because at affordable, you're talking 30 to 80% of AMI, and that's very difficult to build on your own dime without some help. So I'm perfectly happy with going forward with the recommendation to have the public hearing or to begin to assemble more information, because part of that conversation will be, where could we look to find some other sources of money or some other places that we could go? Yes, I want to do the park blocks. Yes, I want to do the farmers market, but I'd like to explore what options we have available to be able to get more affordable housing downtown. And I can think of, there's the short-term approach to that building and there's the long-term approach. And for me, housing is the long-term approach. That's really ultimately why you want to create there is more housing, because that's really the best thing you can do to help people over the long term. And we can work on shelter. We absolutely need to work on shelter. But I think for downtown and for that site and for that building, its best and highest use will ultimately be in affordable housing, and that's kind of the best outcome I want to work towards. So I say we take the motion and begin to assemble the information to look at what those options might be. But for me, the goal is, let's figure out a way through partnership or in whatever form we can to get affordable housing on that site in downtown.
Okay, I have Claire and Mike and Alan each for a second round.
Thank you, Mayor. So I realized I had a couple of questions I forgot to ask. So I just had the opportunity to attend a training last night that the Planning Commission received on the Fair Housing Act. And so just in reference to the public outreach and neighborhood meetings that you're planning for this project, one of the things that, a red flag raised is if a project is being subjected to scrutiny that another project isn't being subjected to. And so I just want to raise that and make sure we're not, because it's affordable housing, we're not putting this through greater scrutiny than we would another multifamily project in the same location under the same conditions. And then you've said there's a multi-million-dollar gap to get this done, but you didn't say what that amount was. And I know it would be a range because these are rough estimates, but.
It's really a range. I didn't actually identify a specific dollar figure. What we looked at was the rate of return based on a variety of features, and then took away various costs from it. And I'm not really able to give you a more precise figure because there's so many variables based on that if somebody builds a 4-story building versus a 6-story building, the size, the studio apartments versus 1 or 2 bedrooms. There are so many variables. It's a very blunt tool at this point to estimate the
That's fair. It's just hard for us to know how to prioritize these potential ways to fill the gap if we don't know the gap we're filling. So I don't know. I'm not sure how we solve that. You know, it's kind of a cart before the horse situation, or chicken and egg maybe might be a better analogy. So I guess this relates back to my request for a list, you know, just a list with a total of all the things we might do, that will help inform when we have to circle back to this question. Because I know, you know, putting out the RFP, we would hear back from people and then we might understand more clearly what the specific gap is for a specific RFP. But I don't know how that plays into this whole process with council. So thanks.
Okay, Mike, Alan, and then Betty.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to return the favor to my friend Councilor Semple by saying after she spoke about this, I'm reconsidering what I put on the record as my 3 priorities here. I have to say I'm kind of at a toss-up of the importance of this project versus the park. So certainly the the farmers market is first, but of the other 2, I'm a little less certain than I was at the beginning of this conversation that of that priority order. I would say, however, that there were some options that weren't discussed, and I think in front of a public hearing, it's important to mention that. We could make a significant contribution to building a much more robust and effective homeless service center and central location with short-term emergency housing. And we could fully fund all 3 of these projects. All we have to do is be willing to spend the facilities reserve. And we have another option in that regard. So what we're listed, we're not the only source of funds. We have 15 million sitting there. We could make a significant dent in homelessness in our community and fully fund all 3 of these if we were willing to do it. We need to say that out loud. Thanks.
Okay, Alan, and then Betty.
The new city hall plan. So we didn't get it, and I didn't get an answer to the process for shifting monies around between the priorities that we have already existing in the urban renewal plan. Is that just a council action with public hearing?
Amanda, yeah, there she is.
Can you give me an example of what you're trying to move?
So if we want to move money from the park blocks to farmers market and potentially some of this money over to farmers market, that's just council action with a public hearing.
So you've started the amendment process for removing the cap for the farmers market project.
Right.
And that process will happen in the fall. It will involve going to the planning commission, notifying the taxing districts. You'll have a public hearing, you'll review the comments, and then you'll pass an ordinance, and that will remove the cap specific to the farmers market.
Could we?
You can move the money around so long as you stay under the total funding number. The only thing that's requiring the public hearing is the cap. So if you wanted to move money amongst the projects and the caps aren't being exceeded, there's no process for that.
Yeah, just council action. Okay. So is it possible to attach a to the existing amendment for the farm or the park blocks to the farmers market, a potential of having some of this money also be moved over so we can have that option available? So if we, for instance, only spend 2.2 million and we allocated 3, there's still $800,000 left. We could potentially use that at farmers market. Is it still timely to add to that process that we already initiated, which we actually sped up during the last couple of meetings ago.
If you wanted to put the 800,000 in the farmer's market, you wouldn't need to add any changes to the plan amendment. If you wanted to spend more than 5.2 million on the park blocks project, you would need to adjust that cap or remove that cap.
Which we're planning to do anyway, right?
Motion passed, and Catherine can clarify, but the motion passed in June was just to amend or remove the cap for the farmer's market. It didn't mention the park blocks.
Right. Okay. Just for the farmers market. So we wouldn't need to do anything. Okay. I got that. So affordable housing, workforce housing in downtown is really an important thing for me as well. For me to move forward on this process, I needed to know that it was doable and fundable, that we could do that project. I didn't want to put out an RFP if I didn't feel like it was a feasible thing to occur. But the way that all things have been laid out with the MUPD dollars available from the Gordon Lofts, if we donated the land, demoed and prepped it, SDC and permit fees paid for, and that's a substantial amount of subsidy that would allow this probably to get there, to fill that multi-million-dollar gap that we're talking about, to get to it to pencil out on the pro forma basis, and if necessary, even a MUPD. I mean, for affordable housing, I might actually have a MUPD project that I could vote for in Eugene to do this one. So all of that to say that I feel like there is enough there to get us to being able to put out an RFP in good faith that this is really doable. So I would support moving forward on the public hearing to allow us to get that information.
Okay, I have Betty and then Jennifer and then Emily, and then we do need to wrap this up because we have a couple of other agenda items. So Betty, take it away.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hear people talking about demolition. I think we should consider the environmental costs of demolition. And I think we seem to be ignoring that. And what's wrong with reuse things instead of throw them away. And as for and I still think we need a homeless shelter downtown, if nothing else, to relieve the library from being a homeless shelter, if the library ever opens again. As for the park blocks, I think that they're fine as they are if we just add a restroom. And restrooms are really urgent. That's one of the big complaints we have, is people using the public spaces when there's no other place. Thank you.
Mayor, unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jennifer and then Emily.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just want to say I really appreciate this discussion. I am also in favor of moving this forward to a public hearing, and I also wanted to echo wanting some more specifics that Claire was mentioning about, where can we tap into funds, and while I'm not sure I'd want to go as drastic as Mike suggested, I also don't want to be dismissive of ideas because, we are in a housing crisis. We've identified this. This should be our top priority. To get this housing where we need it. And so I hope that staff will bring us back as many options as they can find, because I don't want this discussion to be ever about, are we doing this? Like, we should 100% be doing this. It's like, how can we figure out how to do it? So, and I appreciate all the work you guys have done so far in this crazy timeline. It really does help me figure out where we're going with all these multiple things going on. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Great. Emily.
Thank you. Can you remind me how much short we are for the farmer's market? Anybody know how much we need more from the farmer's market?
Our estimate in round numbers is the farmer's market is about a $10 million project. And if you recall, there's like $4.5 million designated for the farmer's market. There's another roughly $5 million in park blocks open space money that you've already initiated to move over to the farmer's market. So, we're really close right now of having, and my sense is we could we could value engineer cost out of the project to do it within the resources. Again, assuming the park blocks money is used for the farmers market. We've also, again, applied for the grant, so that would really help lift all boats at that time. So we're pretty close right now. I wouldn't say there's a huge gap. The roads are the big question mark. How much resource do we have in public works and so forth to do the road work around the farmers market and the park blocks? Those still pencils need to be sharpened a little bit more to see if we can make all of that work at this point.
So we would need to take all of the park blocks and open space unless we get the grant and give it to farmers market.
Generally, I would say yes, especially when we start to fill the gaps that may be necessary to do the road work, complete 8th Avenue and Park Street and those kinds of improvements.
Revamping the park blocks isn't very important to me, but I am still concerned about restroom and the Halt Center corridor. I will not vote to increase the cap on the urban renewal district. I'm fine with shifting it around, except I want those two things. Maybe we spend a little less on the farmers market and not quite so fancy, although I really like it and I really want it. There's subsidies to make the affordable housing, mixed fit housing. That'll basically all come from the general fund if we're covering SDCs, or if we use that urban renewal money. I'm just concerned, with how much money we're spending on so many projects, and we're really entering to an unknown time of financial insecurity and probably deficit. The facilities reserve money, I assume that's the city hall money or whatever building we want to build it there. We don't need a city hall right now. I mean, I would love to have one. I like the plans. I have my own ideas. But the first thing everybody says is homelessness. And that's a big chunk of change, not only for a shelter, but really working upstream. We need housing and jobs, and to somehow work with the county to get more mental health and drug treatment. So things are changing so fast. I don't want to say absolutely. Also, the sidewalks at the park blocks have these big divots between them. So whether it's urban renewal, that's a project that I'd like us to look into. I'd like to make it all work. I don't think we can. Thanks.
Okay, I want to ask Councilor Emily, if you would just go ahead and put a motion on the table.
I move to direct the city manager to schedule a public hearing on the 1059 Willamette project in order to solicit public feedback on whether the project should move forward, as well as the appropriate funding mechanisms for the project. The city manager is further directed to implement the proposed public engagement process.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Excellent, that passes. Thank you. That was an excellent discussion. I'm happy we're moving forward. And with that, we can go on to our second item of business, which I'm envisioning this as a short opportunity, but we'll see how it goes on CAP 2.0.
Yeah, I'm just going to let Chelsea lead that off.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. For folks watching, my name is Chelsea Clinton. I'm the Sustainability Manager with the city, and thanks for having me here again today. As you know, the city released the revised version of the CAP 2.0 on Monday, July 6th, and last Wednesday, July 8th, I was here and gave you an overview of all the changes that we've seen over the past few months. Now that you've had more time to review the document and hear some from constituents at the public forum and through other avenues, I'm just here today to answer your questions and hear any feedback that you may have. I have the slide deck from my presentation last week, but I don't have any new slides to share with you today. I'm happy to share that slide deck as necessary. And as I mentioned last time, we're working towards approval of the CAP, or that's my hope, that we're working towards approval of the CAP at the July 29th work session. So with that, I'll just turn it over for any questions or discussion.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we have Mike in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor. I have thought of a few. As a matter of fact, I've heard from a number of business owners and folks in the community and contractors, oddly enough, people in the building trades. And one of the parts of your presentation was about how data-driven this process was and how the community engagement process was robust. I've heard from a lot of them that they didn't feel they were heard in this process. And so I'm wondering if you'd share just a little bit more about the community engagement process and how it involved some of the people, for example, that I just mentioned.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the main components of the community engagement process were the mayor's CRO ad hoc work group, and then we had engagement around with the ECC partners. We had the equity panel, and then we had just general community engagement opportunities, open houses, and that sort of thing. And so the main way that we engaged the building community was through some of those ECC meetings. We invited folks like Ed McMahon to participate in particular topics. We've changed the chapter structure, so I'm struggling to remember the name that we used for the topic that he engaged in. But I know we invited folks like that to the table at that time. And then we also engaged them in the materials management work that we did through that grant through DEQ. So we asked folks to come in and talk about building materials and the construction materials that are used in our community. So those are the two main specific ways we invited folks in. And then the general community events as well.
And how was their input then included?
They were just involved in the conversation as the ECC partners were talking about which actions they were willing to commit to.
But there's no okay, that's enough on that one. The other piece was that there was a recommendation in there. I believe it was a proposed idea. It was not a commitment to purchase carbon offsets. Do I have that correct as a definition of its inclusion?
Yeah, that is included as part of the unmeasured commitments that are as our pathway to reach the CRO goals. And that was something that council considered as a package of ideas in 2019.
Okay, so it's just one of the ideas that's out there, but hasn't been put forward, and council would do that at some future point. And I would assume that at that point, we'd have conversations about all the data involved in, for example, what would the costs be?
Right. For the community facing plan to cover any gap that on the community side, we would come back to council and ask for direction if we were going to purchase offsets. I do want to be clear that on the internal plan, we are looking to purchase offsets this year, but that's for our operational inventory, not the CAP 2.0 work, which would be
based on that. Will council get a thorough briefing on the costs of what we're already planning to do?
Yeah, I'm happy to provide cost information as we move forward.
Excellent. Secondarily, do you have, based on the goals and the gap, do you have any preliminary data on what will the cost of purchasing carbon offsets be?
Yeah, so first I'd say that you can pay a really large range for carbon offsets. So for a metric ton of carbon, the price from offsets that through our research that we found ranges anything from around $1 to 200, 300. You can pay as much as you want for a carbon offset. So to say what we're going to pay would depend. Generally, we're looking to make those as local as it allows with our budget. So in the case of our internal offsets, we're looking to buy those within Oregon. And then in terms of—
remind me again, I apologize for the interruption. Could you remind me again the number of metric tons we're talking about?
For the community facing plan, the CAP 2.0 plan, the gap that we need to fill is 790,000 metric tons. We anticipate filling a good portion of that with the actions within the plan. So I'm not able to, we'll have to see when we get there what the remaining piece would be and if we would want to fill that with offsets.
Is it reasonable to expect that the cost could run into the millions of dollars if we had to fill it all with carbon offset?
Well, if we purchase the offsets that are $1 a piece, and we know that the gap is 790,000 metric tons, that's less than $1 million. So it really depends on the different choices that we make along the way.
But it'd be over $750,000 for the least expensive option.
If we did nothing else, yes.
Okay. My other questions are around some of the other data in the data-driven plan. It's my understanding that EWEB is currently conducting a very extensive study of their capacity with regard to if we had to electrify everything, what would it cost, where would they buy it from, and how much of it would be based on electricity made from gas and maybe even larger carbon producing sources. Are you aware of when EWEB's going to finish that study?
The last I heard, they plan to finish that study sometime in 2021.
My understanding was this fall or early this winter, they would have at least preliminary information. Is that true based on what you know?
I know the planning process is underway. I'm not familiar with the particular milestones within it, but my understanding is it would be fully complete by sometime in 2021.
Okay. Did any of the work that you did to create the CAP 2.0 discuss the costs of banning gas?
I'm trying to remember the particulars. I think I'd have to get back to you on that one. Some of that information was part of the natural gas negotiations, which, as you know, are confidential at this time. So I just want to make sure where that information lives and what we did. So I'd rather get back to you and give you really accurate information on that one.
Well, and that's kind of my point here, is that the EWEB study won't be in for a while, and I don't know that we got good information about the costs of this plan long term. So I just want to be clear, until all the data is completely in, I don't think we should be making a decision on it. Thank you.
Okay, I have Claire and then Emily.
And thanks, Mayor. And Councilor Taylor was waving her hand too, in case you didn't catch that. So one of the pieces of feedbacks we received, Chelsea, was that we got a bunch of ideas from the community and they've just been cataloged and there's no stated plan to do anything with them. So one idea might be that we could put a timeline into the plan for consideration of those additional pieces. So I'm just going to throw that out there for you and my colleagues. That might be one way to give some reassurance to folks that we don't intend to just ignore them, that we actually will take a look at them going forward. I have not had a chance to dig into this document. So another topic that's come up is solar. And I'm not aware of us having any specific plans or policies related to increasing solar use in the city. Am I correct in that?
Right. In terms of the community-facing plan, the city of Eugene doesn't have any actions around solar.
So that's a place we could potentially dig in, not necessarily between now and the end of the month, but going forward to identify some other means to achieve our goals.
We could. This solar is a tricky topic in that we have access to such clean power at a really low cost through EWEB. We have to think about what is the benefit to solar if we're going to fund it. And so there are a lot of arguments that are strong arguments for solar, and I don't want to diminish any of those, but we do want to be strategic with the dollars that we have to use on our climate work. And so thinking about a lot of folks talk about solar and resiliency, which is totally true, but that has to go with battery storage, which is pretty, costs are all over the place, but hopefully getting better all the time. So it's a conversation that I think we need to continue to have and look at, and a conversation that is really important to have in partnership with EWEB. They have a lot of the latest data and research and really stay on top of that conversation. So want to just agree that we should continue to talk about it, but that it's complex because we do have access to this great clean or carbon, almost carbon-free power source.
Great. Well, thanks. That's very helpful context. So I just want to remind us and any public who might be watching, I think we talked when you brought this to us earlier in the month, and I see this as a dynamic plan It's not a plan like our transportation system plan where we, come up with these projects. These are the projects. That's what's going to happen. We're not going to be reconsidering those projects or considering more. That's the plan. This plan is not like that. This is a dynamic plan. We're going to work with what we have right now. We may adopt the plan with this 40% gap still in it, but that doesn't mean we're throwing our hands up and saying, well, that's it. That's the plan. This is all we're doing. It's our starting point, and then we will, do more, re-adopt the plan with those new things in it. That's at least how I'm envisioning this process happening, because it's an achievement-based plan. It's not a plan like, blueprints for a house. It's an ongoing iterative plan. So I think it's really important for all of us to remember that, because otherwise some of us are going to get very frustrated about where we are with this process. And I think we just need to keep pushing forward. And what we put on a piece of paper on, July 27th isn't the end of the story. Thanks.
Okay, Emily and then Betty.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Syrett, and the plan has to adapt and change, because we didn't reach our goal, and our goal is still there. People think that we're giving it up, I think, but we're not, and we haven't identified all of the ways that we can get it better. And two concerns are, what are the costs, and how are we going to get people to do things they don't want to do? Are we just going to outlaw cars? Because that would make a big difference, but we might have people in the streets about that. I mostly wanted to speak to the Sustainability Commission, which is meeting tonight, and has a letter for us that we'll finalize tonight. But a heads up, most of it has to do with the community recommended actions. Since those are the newest ones, we've paid less attention to them, and they want them to be caught up and reviewed in a timely manner, as Claire said. And they've provided a short list of the ones they think we should implement right away. And they're also concerned about working with the TSP, and everyone's very concerned about Northwest Natural Gas, but that's coming up in the future. So be looking for this recommendation from the Sustainability Commission. And this plan is a great beginning, but it's still a beginning, even though it's been a lot of work. So got to keep going. Thank you.
Okay, Betty and then Alan.
Thank you. I haven't read the total plan thoroughly yet, but what I'm hearing from people is they're concerned that there's nothing about natural gas, or that nothing about curbing the use of natural gas. Is that true?
We do have an action in there that's essentially a placeholder referencing the Northwest Natural Gas franchise agreement work that's happening now. And as you know, that work is in negotiation, confidential, and it's just a little bit behind the cap work. So I know Ethan's been reaching out to you all and working through that process, but that's the extent that's included in the cap right now.
So will it be changed when the negotiations are finished? Will something be added?
We'll continue to update these actions as we move forward. As many of you have mentioned, this is a dynamic planning process. I do want to be a little bit cautious as we move forward. We would need to figure out and work with you all, like, do we want to formally change the plan, what's written on paper, or do we want to figure out another way to track progress? As you know, there's a lot of public engagement and costs that come along with formally changing what's on paper, but just figuring out a way to dynamically track priorities, probably I would recommend through our annual report would be a good way to go that would kind of strike that balance. But yeah, we would definitely include that in our messaging and our work plan and all of that moving forward.
And my next question, is it possible to get just a list of actions that we're asking people to do?
So the plan itself includes...
I know things are included, but I'm talking about a list where what's going to happen and what are we asking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So the plan itself, all the items in there labeled actions are commitments that organizations have made. So there's 115 actions that you can look to in the plan, and there's an accompanying timeline in the appendix that shows when those things are, when we're planning on moving those forward, different organizations. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question though. Is that what you were asking?
Not really, but that's okay. Okay. Thank you.
Chelsea, that may have been a little bit more of a question about the community engagement piece of the plan.
Oh, okay. So the list of 72 ideas. Yeah, okay. So those ideas from the community.
It's those ideas and also your actual community engagement plan, which is a component about the Sustainability Commission and the Sustainable Business Plan. There are that piece.
Okay, thank you. So the community engagement pieces that we presented in June, we plan to move forward on all of those this year. And so the equity panel, the supporting the commission, the communications campaign, and so on. That work will happen this year and will be ongoing. And then the list of actions from the community members, I think is a topic of conversation. So there are a lot of great ideas in there, and I know folks are eager for us to vet them and consider if we can move them into the commitment category. We are facing this challenge of to do more planning means to kind of reprioritize, and we have to do this balance and trade-off between planning and implementation all the time. We've got 2 staff members leading this work. We can put more resource to it and ask a consultant to help vet as well. But there's these trade-offs between time and resource and whether we want to focus or how much effort we want to put in each bucket of planning versus implementation.
Okay, Alan, and then Mike.
Yeah, I got what Betty was asking for was individual actions, actions that individuals can do. I think that's what she was asking for, which is a different thing. So the 790,000 metric ton gap that we have that needs to be filled by this plan, there are lots of commitments and actions, and we've identified 60% of them to be done. For offsets actually will end up should be the last resort that we resort to if we can't get it done. In order for us to buy all of the 790%, we'd have to have a complete failure of this plan and nothing to get done. So I don't think that that's what's going to happen at all. I think offsets are going to end up being a very limited number. Lots of entities actually limit the maximum amount of offsets that can be done in their plan. So that might be something we can look at. And I have advocated that when we do offsets, they should only be local offsets, so they can be and they get done in our community, so that they're local economic development jobs programs that we spend our money on instead of far away carbon offset actions that reduce greenhouse gases. But they're all verifiable and functional. So, but they should be limited. As to the public comment on the community suggested actions, I am not in favor of actually delaying approval of this plan for the 6 months to a year that it would take to do the analysis on all of that, to get it included in and figured out, and not start doing any of the implementation. I think it's fair and reasonable to have, say, for instance, the actions have all of the actions be analyzed and figured out, because it's a lot of work over the next 2 years. I'm afraid that if we focus on that, then we don't do any implementation, we don't get going. Let's get going. We've got enough stuff identified for years and years of work. We can do the analysis and identify those other things as we go along. They're important, but let's get going and start to do the reductions. So on Claire's point about solar, actually all public buildings over $5 million are required to use 1.5% for green energy technology, including solar. So anything that we do that's new, that's a public building, will actually have solar on it. And then in the end, what we really want to have this plan be able to do eventually is be a least cost plan, meaning we want to identify all the things that are the cheapest to do, that have the biggest bang for the buck, do them first, and then do the expensive stuff later. That's the smart way to do planning. That's the way electricity has been doing it for 30, 40 years, where you identify the cheap stuff first, do that, and then do the more expensive stuff later. So we should be able to get to the point where we have a list of all of the different actions and what they cost per metric ton and do the most cost effective first.
Okay, and Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that last part I kind of rushed through, and I really would like to emphasize that because it bears on what Alan was just saying as well. I think, unless I'm mistaken, that a good proportion of this, all of this plan relies on a lot of the input we've been getting from people for a very long time about the intelligence of moving as many people's daily lives towards electrification as possible. And it seems to me that when we talk about from electric vehicles to all the manner in which, to electric heating, to all of the manners we would be increasing the draw on electricity, that makes it all the more important for us to hear from our electric provider, from EWEB, to know what the costs of that would be, not just financially, but because it may put rates for folks in a place that is unrealistic. But also, they're going to have to get that power from somewhere. And we don't know if they're going to need during peak times to buy power produced with burning more fossil fuels and creating more carbon emissions than we're saving by doing the electrification. And we don't know the answer to that yet. So I would think before we start taking actions that may have the exact opposite effect of what we're hoping for, that we would at least have some indication of whether or not that was the case. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to reiterate a couple of things, which is, Claire made the comment in the very beginning. This is an organic document, and the fact that it's a moving, living document is going to be reflected in annual reports that you're going to receive, a biannual assessment of greenhouse gas reductions. It's going to come back to you again and again. So once it's enacted, then we're on the path of implementation, and every year council will have an opportunity to look at what do we know now that we didn't know last year when we reviewed this. And some of that will include what we learned from EWEB, and some of that will include what we'll know about the Northwest Natural franchise agreement, and some of it will be the assessment that we have of new technologies, where we are with solar. So I think the idea is, let's get moving. There's, as Alan has said, there's plenty to commit to. And there's also a commitment to continue to adapt to new technologies and adapt to new circumstances built within the plan, and look at those community ideas as ways in which we will be able to adapt and adjust to changing circumstances and some priorities. So I would just encourage you to feel comfortable moving forward, knowing that we are in a shifting landscape. We are not going to dot all the I's and cross all the T's for an entire plan at this moment in time. Betty, I'll give you one last comment. And
thank you. You gave me as much time as Alan has had, I assume. I just wanted to say that I always like to say when I agree with Mike. I think he's right that anything, we should look at the unintended consequences, and instead of just look a narrow way, look what's going to happen because of this. Like when you close the restrooms to keep them clean, you shift it to the streets. And any action we take, we should look at all the possible consequences. Thank you.
thank you. And with that, I think we can move on to our third item of business, a financial update. Thank you, Chelsea, very much for that report. And I'll turn it over to manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm joined today by Twyla Miller, and luckily you don't have to vote on anything, so we just can give you some information. If we don't have enough time for you to get your questions answered, I can follow up with each of you one-on-one. You know, when I presented the budget, I talked about it being sort of a base camp budget, that we still had a lot of challenges ahead of us and kind of some unknown paths, but we had kind of a stable place to begin. And as you know, as COVID continues and things continue to shift, our financial condition is also shifting. And so I wanted to be able to give you just newer information about that, and also talk about that in the context of the PERS EIF payment that we'll need to make this summer, potentially. So I'm going to have Twyla jump in, and then I'll wrap us up at the end.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, so good afternoon. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, excellent. So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Twyla Miller, City Finance Director. So we're a little short on time, so I'll try to run through my slides fairly quickly. I did want to start by talking about our financial cycle. We are always in a 3-year cycle. So currently we are here. So our fiscal year 20 ended on June 30th. So staff are busy posting revenues and expenditures and posting everything so that we can prepare for our annual financial audit. As a reminder, the our annual financial report, or our CAFR, is received by Council in December when we bring the supplemental budget that reconciles our marginal beginning working capital. Programs and services are underway this fiscal year, FY21, and I'll talk in a bit more about potential financial and program impacts. And then staff are already starting to think forward and planning for the FY22 budget cycle, including continued financial analysis as we look to the future. So as we discussed in the financial condition update in April, and as part of the proposed budget presentation, we're in a time of great uncertainty, and we continue to monitor what is happening with the economy, which will continue to be shaped by what happens locally with the pandemic as we move into the fall and winter seasons. As we've discussed previously, there's a cyclical nature to an economic downturn, and there will be continued impacts in a variety of areas over the next few years as we stabilize and recover. In the general fund, a major revenue driver is property taxes. So as a reminder, property taxes are 67% of our general fund revenues. So impacts to collections and assessed value growth have a great impact on our financial condition. In FY21, the potential risk is around our collection rate. Typically, we have assumed a collection rate of 95%, and in our amended budget, we reduced the collection rate to 93%. However, there is a downside risk that our collection rate this year will be as low as 90% due to the provision in the Federal CARES Act, where mortgage payers can temporarily suspend payment for up to 12 months. While we won't know what the impact will be in Eugene until December when we receive the bulk of our property tax payments, the impact to general fund revenues in FY21 of a 90% collection rate would be a decrease of about $5.8 million in FY21. While we would expect to recover this tax revenue at a point in time in the future, when and how much are not known. And then looking to the future in FY22, the impact on property taxes would be from lower growth rates and possible property tax appeals. Pre-COVID, our growth rate was 4%, which was adjusted downward with the amended budget forecast. If the growth rate were to drop an additional 2% in FY22 and take longer to rebound back up to that 4% level, there could be an additional $10.2 million impact to the general fund over the entire 6-year forecast. The other driver that we look to a lot in the general fund is EWEB, contribution in lieu of tax, or SILT. Last April, EWEB was estimating a 5% drop in retail SILT in the near term. A 5% drop equals $600,000 in lower revenue to the city. The adopted budget forecast assumed lower SILT revenue of $140,000 in FY20 and another $300,000 in FY21, assuming normal activity through the second half of FY21. So given our current situation, that might be overly optimistic, and we may need to lower our estimates when we receive new numbers from EWEB staff. EWEB also was modeling scenarios that show up to a 15% reduction to usage, which would result in an additional $1.5 million reduction to general fund revenues over the amended budget forecast if this were actually true for the entire FY21 budget year. There's also operating revenues as programs and services have been modified or experienced interruptions to operations due to facility closures. We are projecting revenue reductions in recreation services, muni court, library services. In total, operating revenues for these service areas have been reduced by $1 million in FY21, with the assumption that normal revenue levels return in FY22. As we gain more experience and see what happens in our community, we may need to revise estimates for FY21 and as we look forward and prepare the FY22 budget, so time will tell. And then interest on investments, with the recent impact to the market and our rates have been falling, our portfolio rate is falling. So there's kind of a longer term impact there. As rates are lower, it takes our portfolio rate longer in an economic downturn to recover. And so the current forecast is showing a total reduction of about $3 million over the entire forecast period. But on the bright side, there is the possibility of state and federal funding. As we've discussed before, the airport received almost $23 million in CARES funds, and the city has received $2.8 million in an initial CARES funding, which will be posted back to FY20. So this will be part of the marginal beginning working capital adjustment on supplemental budget in December. These funds were reimbursement for COVID expenses that were incurred by the city this past spring. The other areas that we've chatted about previously related to the general fund, eWebSILT we've discussed. There's Comcast revenues in the FCC order. There's a potential impact there if they were to stop paying of $3.5 million annually to general fund revenues. We've already discussed property taxes. There is uncertainty about PERS rates. We have assumed a 3% increase beginning in FY24 based on information we received earlier this year that was in the adopted budget forecast. And we will get our rates this fall for FY22 with some additional actuarial value information, which will help inform our out year assumptions in the forecast. There's personnel costs as well. We are a service organization, so we're highly dependent on personnel. Currently, all employee group wage considerations tied to CPI in the out years in the forecast. And we will have contract negotiations over the next couple of years with our union partners. We are in a recession officially, which will be impacted by future events, including what happens over the next year with the pandemic and business activity, including when a vaccine is developed, what happens with elections, federal actions, and other issues. As a reminder, the adopted budget forecast is anticipating a budget gap in the general fund in the years of FY22 through 24 of $7.6 million based upon the assumptions we used this past spring. As we get more information, that number will change as we update our assumptions and gain more experience. So next, I'd like to touch upon the non-general funds. This recession is different than the Great Recession, which, although it impacted other funds, it primarily impacted the general fund services for the city. This current event has had an immediate impact on many revenue sources and programs outside of the general fund, as is shown on the slide here. While there's been good news for the airport with CARES funding, there are other funds in distress, most notably the parking fund, ambulance transport fund, and cultural services subfund. Last spring, when the budget was being put together, staff were hopeful that we would return to higher activity levels, both with business activity downtown and use of services this summer. As the pandemic unfolds and uncertainty remains about the continued phase in and return to previous activity levels, staff are monitoring and modeling a range of outcomes, currently anticipating that activity downtown for parking and cultural services events and other items won't return to more normal levels until July of 2021. This adds additional stress to these funds. And just to illustrate what's happening, you may have seen some of these before. For the parking fund, this graph is showing parking revenue by day from the beginning of the calendar year. As you can see, the revenue dropped dramatically in mid-March and has stayed low, increasing slightly as we come into the summer. Not shown on this graph, permit revenues are also starting to decrease as people are canceling their permits as they continue to work from home. This parking revenue graph here is significant because the hourly parking revenue is about 50% of parking fund revenues in total. Another fund we're looking at is the ambulance transport fund. Medical transports decreased once COVID started as people were refusing medical transports. The green line shows when the stay-at-home order went into effect, and you can see the transports generally stayed low well into phase 1. Transport activity is increasing, but generally staff can continue to monitor activity levels. Both the parking fund and ambulance transport fund are expected to be in a negative position as the year-end audit is completed. Budget action to balance these funds will come to council as part of the December supplemental budget. Staff continue to monitor all of these funds and are working towards options for fund stability during this time of economic distress. Now I'd like to switch gears here and talk a little bit about PERS. As a reminder, the PERS Employer Incentive Fund was created by the state legislature in 2019 as a tool for employers to address their unfunded actuarial liability, or UAL. The EIF was initially funded with $100 million to provide matching funds of 25% to jurisdictions. Once the deposit is made, there's an immediate rate offset to lower the rate, which reduces PERS costs. For deposits of 10 million or more, the agency can choose their amortization period of 6, 10, 16, or 20 years, which will impact the rate offset amount. So as a reminder, the FY21 adopted budget includes an $8 million deposit to leverage $2 million in state funds for a total deposit of $10 million amortized over 10 years. By choosing the 10-year amortization, our PERS rates are expected to decrease by about 1.08%, which equates to a $13 million savings across all funds over the 10-year period, or a net savings of $5 million. By incorporating this strategy into the forecast, this one-time investment lowers costs and creates financial capacity in the system to achieve other goals over this time frame. The sources of funding for the deposit include $2.9 million from the other post-employee benefits, or OPEB fund. These funds were set aside for future retirement costs in 2009. We've confirmed with our auditor that using these funds to reduce PERS costs for all funds is an appropriate use of this reserve. The remaining $5.1 million is spread proportionally across city funds that have personnel expenses, with the general fund share at about $3 million. So the maximum the city can deposit and still receive the full 25% match is $8 million, which we've included in the adopted budget. We can deposit a lower amount and still receive a 25% match if desired, given the uncertainty of current economic conditions. And 2 alternate options are shown here. At minimum, the city should deposit $3 million, as the majority of these funds have been set aside for OPEB and PERS costs and cannot be spent on alternate uses. But as you can see from the chart, the greater the deposit, the higher your rates offset and higher your savings over time. So overall, a $5 million deposit would reduce costs by $11.7 million to the city over 20 years, and a $3 million deposit would reduce costs by $6.8 million over the 20-year period. So things we're considering: by depositing a lower amount, there is more flexibility in the near term with more cash in the reserve. However, the downside with a lower deposit is that our costs are higher overall, which will create additional pressures on the budget gap in the general fund and also in the distressed non-general funds. So before we can make a deposit, the following things need to occur. So we've committed to updating council. We talked about that in budget committee in May. We need to make a decision on the intended deposit amount. We also need to request an actuarial calculation with the deposit amount and the intended deposit date. This needs to go to the PERS actuary, so this could take several weeks to process depending on how many other jurisdictions are ahead of us in the queue. And then once we have the calculation with the final rate offset, we need to give PERS 5 business days notice before we make our deposit. However, once we make our deposit, the rate offset will begin in that month. So under the current rules, we have to make a deposit before December 1st or we lose our matching funds being held. To do this, we would need to make a deposit decision by mid-October in order to go through this process. However, due to the state budget shortfall, PERS staff are recommending that jurisdictions make their deposits as soon as possible, as matching funds at the state could be repurposed to address the state budget shortfall. We anticipate a special session to address the state budget to occur in August as a first step as the state considers its budget. So it's advisable to take action this summer rather than waiting until October. Due to the economic situation, staff are working on further analysis to provide information to the city manager. But given the state budget situation and the shortfall they're facing, the city manager will likely need to make a decision on the deposit amount before council comes back from break in September. So as we look to the future, staff are continually monitoring our financial situation and impacts to the community as we stabilize and work towards community recovery. We will need to take action this summer on the PERS EIF deposit amount. And the audit will be complete and actions will come back to council in December as part of the supplemental budget with considerations of marginal beginning working capital. So that was a lot of information really quickly. That concludes my presentation, and the city manager will make some final comments before we take questions.
Actually, Twyla, I think you covered it perfectly. And my concern was really just that council, that you understand that I'm probably going to need to make this decision before you're back in September. So I wanted you to just understand the context of what that decision would include and just get your feedback on that. And we can do that independently if you're not able to extend the meeting.
Okay, we are at time. I think this is a worthy conversation. If you want to put a motion forward to extend by 10 minutes to enable some questions to be answered.
Move to extend 10 minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Let's see, I can't see everybody. Can we take the slide down so I can actually get it out? Let's see, 1, 2, oopsie. Lost you. Okay, I'm just thinking that past. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, great. All right, thank you. I have Mike in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so glad to see us taking advantage of the EIF. I remember pushing the idea really hard in Budget Committee 3 years ago when the legislature first passed that. Sarah, I wasn't clear with that last part, whether or not that's solely your decision in terms of amount, or with authority already granted, or whether we have to make a decision, but I'm for the entire 8 million. So just FYI.
The adopted budget actually gives me the authority to make the $8 million payment. And what we told you and this just recently was that we would come back to you and update you if we weren't able to do that. And so right now, the current situation is we may not be able to do that full amount. And so I just wanted to make sure you knew that going into your break.
I think that's very intelligent money saved over time, and we'll need it. Twyla, great presentation, especially so fast under all the circumstances with so much information. I appreciate the 7% expected decline with the possibility of 10. I think it will be at least 10. Nationally, we have an 8.9% of all mortgages are in forbearance. You can start my clock too. I don't want to take too much time there, and I notice it's not running. So, with 9% of all mortgages in the country in forbearance, I would say that percentage is higher in Eugene, and thus, when we get to that wall, I think an awful lot of those aren't going to be paid, and thus the taxes don't get paid because I don't believe the national folks have the wherewithal to do that while needing to pay bondholders. I question that. I don't know enough to know to what extent, but that's what I read when I see it. I think we need a dramatic local option. I think on November 3rd, most of the opportunities like the CARES Act and those sort of federal plans will go by the wayside. And I think we're going to need to be prepared for some real pain on the local level that we're going to have to step up and help with. I have an idea for that. I'm not going to talk about it now, but Twyla, I appreciated your email today. I would like to meet with you and Sarah and flesh out the details of that idea so that we can bring it back to council at the appropriate time. But I think we're going to need to help renters and help homeowners. And I have an idea I think may do that and thus translate into greater collection rates over time. This is the reason too, what we've just seen with the potential for tens of millions being short in the next couple of years budgets. why I suggest additional monies for the library levy and additional monies for some of the other things we're doing may not be very wise right now. And I really urge my colleagues to pause and think about that. Thank you.
Okay, Alan.
Yeah, I also think this is a great idea. I've advocated for it as well. I understand what the manager's position, very good, timely, and well done presentation. A lot of info crammed in there, but I was following along. And so I trust the manager to do as much as she possibly thinks is reasonable that we can, up to the $8 million. It'd be great if we can do that, but understand if we can't. So it's really just, it's a judgment call, and we hired you to do that kind of judgment call. So go forth and do good. Don't screw up.
Betty, would you like to make a comment?
First, I want to say that was an excellent presentation, very clear and concise, and I wish they were all like that. But I agree with the previous speakers that we should invest as much as possible. Makes sense. And this is not, I assume this is not a council decision. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other need for comments? All right. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Manager, did you want to speak to anything?
No, I just want to say thank you. I'll try not to screw up.
Yeah, try not to screw up. That's great. It really was an excellent report. Thank you all. Very productive council work session, and have a good afternoon. We are adjourned.